We do know that Camilla had told friends at this point that she was surprised at the unexpected side to William that she had found. The boy's got a temper, she apparently said. One of them was born to be king. The other came to the royal family late in life, but has nevertheless become one of the key figures in the firm.
Prince William has reportedly made a move that could change the royal family long after King Charles is gone. But the most astonishing part isn't that Camilla's grandson was suddenly pushed away from the center of royal life. It's that Princess Anne was allegedly aware of what was happening and, according to royal insiders, quietly let it happen. If those reports are true, then what looked like one uncomfortable family decision may actually have been the first public glimpse of William's future monarchy. For years, Camilla's family appeared to enjoy a place close to the royal family. They attended important gatherings, appeared alongside senior royals, and gradually became part of the wider picture surrounding King Charles. Then, almost without warning, royal watchers noticed something had changed. Invitations reportedly became fewer. Access appeared tighter. Familiar faces quietly disappeared from the places where they had once seemed welcome. None of it came with a dramatic announcement, but every small change pointed in the same direction. What makes this story impossible to ignore is that palace observers believe this wasn't simply about one grandson. They believe it was about Prince William drawing a line that had been waiting to be drawn for years. A line between private family members and the institution he will one day inherit. And according to persistent royal gossip, one senior royal whose judgment carries enormous weight never tried to stop him. Before we uncover how this extraordinary chain of events reportedly unfolded, if you believe Prince William is right to put the future of the monarchy ahead of family favoritism, don't just watch this story. Subscribe, like this video, and share it with another royal watcher. Your support tells YouTube that more people want honest discussions about the future of the royal family, and it helps these stories reach viewers who care about where the monarchy is heading. Hi viewers, if you believe the monarchy should always put duty before family connections, type duty first in the comments. If you think family should always come first, type family first. I'd genuinely love to see where everyone stands before we get into what happened next. Because what happened next reportedly caught even experienced palace insiders by surprise. The story wasn't driven by a shouting match, a leaked letter, or a dramatic confrontation. It unfolded through quiet meetings, subtle decisions, and changes so small that almost nobody noticed them at first. But once those pieces began falling into place, they revealed something far bigger than a disagreement over one member of Camilla's family. They suggested that Prince William had already begun shaping the monarchy he intends to lead, and that Princess Anne may have quietly approved every step of the way.
Prince William and Queen Camilla might be close now, but it wasn't a straightforward path to get there, with rows and heartache and complaints of leaking stories along the way. In this programme, I'm going to look at that journey through some of the key moments that got us there, and explain why theirs is one of the most important relationships for the British royal family and its future.
Prince William reportedly made a decision that stunned even seasoned royal watchers, but according to commentators and unverified palace claims, the real shock was not the decision itself. It was what happened immediately afterward. There were no angry public exchanges, no official denial, no dramatic statement from Buckingham Palace. Instead, one quiet moment inside royal circles allegedly revealed that a line had finally been drawn. Reports began circulating that Camilla's grandson was no longer being treated with the same informal access to royal spaces that had quietly existed before. Whether those reports fully reflected reality remains disputed, but they sparked one question that refused to disappear. Who had decided the rules were changing? What made the story even more intriguing was the name that kept appearing behind the scenes. Princess Anne. Royal commentators have long described Anne as someone who rarely wastes words and almost never participates in palace gossip. Yet according to several speculative insider accounts, she witnessed William's reported approach unfold without objecting. Inside a family where silence often carries its own meaning, that alleged reaction became almost as important as the original story. If William truly intended to redraw the boundaries around the future monarchy, had one of the most respected members of the royal family quietly agreed all along? Before we uncover how this remarkable chain of events reportedly unfolded, take a second to subscribe if you enjoy thoughtful royal stories that separate confirmed facts from the rumors and palace speculation surrounding them.
When William came home unexpectedly for the weekend from Eton, Camilla offered to leave, but Charles thought it right that they get it over with. He took her to the flat William had at Clarence House and left them to talk for half an hour. According to Penny Jr., at the end of the conversation, Camilla came out saying, "I need a drink." Despite the obviously difficult circumstances, it's thought that William had been friendly and Camilla had been sensitive about his feelings.
Some of the biggest royal stories are hidden between official announcements, and today's story may be one of the most fascinating examples yet. Hi viewers, if you discovered that someone in your own family was quietly changing the rules without telling everyone else first, would you confront them or stay silent? Tell us your answer in the comments, because your opinion could be very different from everyone else's, and it will be fascinating to see where most viewers stand. The reported story did not begin with shouting, accusations, or an explosive family argument. According to royal commentators, it began with something much harder to notice. Invitations reportedly became more selective. Access allegedly became more restricted. Conversations that had once been routine were suddenly handled with greater care. None of those developments were confirmed by the palace, but together they created a pattern that fueled endless speculation among royal observers. That pattern became impossible to ignore when reports suggested William had personally requested a closer review of who should be considered part of the monarchy's future inner circle. Whether every reported detail is accurate remains uncertain, yet the discussion itself reflected a genuine question that has surrounded the royal family for years. Where should the line be drawn between relatives of the monarch and those who actually represent the institution? According to public reporting, Camilla's grandchildren have never held royal titles, carried out official duties, or occupied any place in the line of succession. They are private citizens connected to the crown through their grandmother's marriage to King Charles. Even so, their appearances at certain family occasions over the years encouraged many observers to wonder whether those informal relationships would continue under William's eventual reign. That question reportedly became even more sensitive as William's vision for a smaller working monarchy attracted increasing attention. Royal experts have repeatedly suggested that the Prince of Wales favours a leaner institution centred on those who actively perform official duties. If those assessments are correct, every informal arrangement inherited from previous years would eventually face closer examination. The issue, according to commentators, was never simply about one grandson. It was about defining who belongs inside the institution and who remains connected only through family ties. Then another reported detail began circulating among royal watchers. Behind closed doors, advisors were allegedly comparing decades of tradition with the practical demands facing the next generation of the monarchy. Some believed preserving family harmony should remain the priority. Others reportedly argued that unclear boundaries could create unnecessary confusion in the years ahead. No official record of those conversations has ever been released, leaving much of the discussion firmly in the realm of informed speculation. Yet the timing of the reports convinced many observers that something significant was unfolding beneath the palace's carefully controlled public image. And then came the detail that transformed an ordinary royal rumor into something much larger. According to those same reports, someone whose opinion carries enormous weight inside the royal family had already reached a conclusion long before anyone outside palace walls realized what was happening. That person was Princess Anne. But if Anne had truly signaled quiet approval, what exactly had she approved, and why would William reportedly feel compelled to act before becoming king? Those questions would lead far deeper into the monarchy than anyone expected. The door to the private briefing room inside the palace had barely clicked shut before the atmosphere in the room visibly shifted.
Change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that, and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me, is the idea of being able to bring some change. Not overly radical change, but changes that I think need to happen.
A thick paper dossier, bound in dark blue and stamped with strict security classifications, was slid across the polished mahogany table directly toward Prince William. There was no polite preamble. no gentle easing into the subject, and certainly no attempt to soften what the pages contained. Inside were precise schedules, detailed flight logs, guest registries for high-profile private events, and a comprehensive paper trail documenting the quiet, creeping inclusion of non-working family members into spaces reserved strictly for the crown. At the very center of the file was the growing public profile of Queen Camilla's grandson. For months, subtle shifts had been occurring beneath the surface of the royal household. To the untrained eye, a teenager attending a high-profile gathering or standing near the inner circle of the royal family seemed entirely harmless, perhaps even touching. It looked like a modern, blended family simply coming together under the warm umbrella of King Charles's reign. But to senior palace strategists, the implications were far darker and vastly more dangerous. The dossier detailed how subtle commercial associations, unofficial press mentions, and repeated unvetted public access were threatening to dissolve the sharp, protective line between public constitutional service and private family privilege. William did not immediately flip through the pages. He rested his hands on the table, staring at the front cover, while the room remained suffocatingly quiet. The officials sitting opposite him were not entry-level staff. These were seasoned palace strategists who had navigated the devastating fallout of past royal scandals. They knew that when the boundaries of the monarchy blur, public trust collapses with brutal speed. The warnings written in that file were unsparing. If this pattern continued unchecked, the carefully constructed firewall protecting the working core of the royal family would burn to the ground. The briefing detailed how King Charles had spent the early years of his reign attempting to balance his duties as a monarch with his deep personal affection for his wife's family. Charles wanted a warm, inclusive family environment, often welcoming Camilla's children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, along with their children, into the periphery of royal life. They were invited to estate gatherings, seen in public arriving at royal residences, and granted informal privileges that previous generations of non-royal relatives could only have dreamed of. However, what Charles viewed as paternal warmth, senior institutional advisors viewed as an untenable constitutional hazard. Unofficial access carries a heavy price. When private family members who carry zero constitutional responsibility begin to move in the same orbits as working royals, the media instantly creates a narrative of royal endorsement. Third-party commercial entities notice. PR firms begin subtly leveraging proximity to the throne. Before anyone in authority realizes what is happening, the authority of the crown is being traded for commercial and social clout. As the advisors spoke, the tension in the room grew heavy. The review had uncovered alarming inconsistencies. In several instances, established palace protocols regarding security clearance, media clearance, and spatial access had been quietly bypassed. Staff members, unsure of how to navigate the delicate dynamics of the king's blended family, had simply looked the other way rather than risk offending the Queen. Access had been granted not through official administrative channels, but through informal verbal requests. The report made it crystal clear the problem was no longer theoretical. It was happening right now, behind closed doors, and it was expanding. William listened, his face an unreadable mask, before finally raising a single, sharp question that cut through the polite diplomatic jargon filling the room. He wanted to know precisely who had authorized the relaxation of the guidelines, and how far those informal permissions had already reached. The answers provided by the aides were evasive, reflecting the deep friction already fracturing the palace corridors. Competing advisory teams were locked in an intense, covert tug-of-war. On one side were those who argued for complete silence and passive acceptance.
Family overwhelms me quite a bit. You know, worry or stress around family side of things, that does overwhelm me quite a bit. But in terms of, you know, doing the job and things like that, I don't feel too overwhelmed by that.
They warned that taking any decisive action against Camilla's grandson would be interpreted as a direct, aggressive insult to the Queen herself. They urged caution, begging for quiet, informal negotiations that would gradually phase out the access without causing a scene. They feared a domestic war within the royal residences that could spill over into the tabloid headlines. inflicting massive damage on the king's domestic peace. On the other side stood the constitutional purists. Their argument was cold, calculating, and absolute. The monarchy does not exist to shield the feelings of private step relatives. The institution survives purely on absolute discipline, transparency, and unyielding boundaries. Allowing extended, non-working relatives to walk the tightrope of semi-royal status was a recipe for catastrophe, echoing the exact structural errors that had severely damaged the monarchy in decades past. William's response to the briefing was immediate, cold, and entirely devoid of emotion. He did not raise his voice, nor did he indulge in family sentiment. Instead, he ordered a complete, exhaustive, top-to-bottom audit of every single protocol governing invitations, public appearances, VIP entry lists, and spatial access across all royal estates. He demanded every document, every email exchange between palace staff and private representatives, and every security log associated with extended family members over the past 18 months. When word of William's sweeping review leaked through the inner corridors, it sent shockwaves through the household staff. Officials who had spent months executing informal orders suddenly realized they were caught in the middle of a massive institutional shift. The audit began pulling back layers of quiet arrangements, exposing just how deep the informal permissions had gone. The evidence showed a systematic drifting away from established protocol, proving that the boundary between the public institution and Camilla's private relatives had not merely blurred, it had been practically erased in certain private quarters. For Queen Camilla, the emotional weight of this audit was brutal. Her family had spent years enduring intense public scrutiny, navigating the harsh, unyielding spotlight that came with her long relationship with Charles. To see her grandson's name drawn into a formal palace investigation under the cold banner of constitutional threat felt like a deeply personal strike. Yet, those who understood the inner mechanics of the monarchy knew that William was not operating out of personal malice. He was acting out of a sharp, almost ruthless sense of institutional self-preservation. He saw a structural vulnerability that threatened the stability of the throne he is destined to inherit, and he was fully prepared to seal it shut, regardless of whose feelings were bruised in the process. Now pause for a moment and really think about this. If you are watching this narrative unfold right now and you refuse to hit that subscribe button, you are actively choosing to turn your back on the crucial truths behind the headlines. We put hundreds of hours into uncovering these institutional facts while others feed you generic media noise. If you care even remotely about the truth of what happens behind those palace gates, prove it right now by subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and dropping your honest thoughts in the comments below. Leaving this video without subscribing means you are willing to miss the most critical updates when the ultimate truth finally breaks. Don't sit on the sidelines while this historic power struggle unfolds. As the exhaustive review reached its final damning conclusions, the advisory teams gathered once again to present the findings to the Prince of Wales. The audit proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that informal access had been exploited, creating a glaring operational risk for the Crown. The room sat in nervous silence, waiting to see if William would back down to preserve family harmony or enforce a rigid, uncompromising boundary that would inevitably alienate the Queen. Then, a senior official placed a final, highly sensitive internal memo on top of the pile. It was a single-page document that contained a stark, decisive recommendation regarding the immediate removal of all informal privileges for non-working extended family. That single confidential recommendation reportedly altered the entire trajectory of every conversation that followed, setting off a chain of events that no one in the palace saw coming. The sharp scrape of a heavy oak chair cutting across the marble floor shattered the silence of the private suite inside Highgrove. Prince William did not wait for the assembled officials to settle into their seats before he delivered a flat, unyielding command that instantly froze the room. Every informal pass, every unvetted security clearance, and every standing invitation extended to Queen Camilla's private family was to be revoked immediately. There would be no public announcement, no face-saving statements issued to the media, and zero exceptions made for private domestic celebrations held on Crown property. The immediate silence that followed was suffocating. Senior aides exchanged brief, alarmed glances, fully aware that they were standing in the middle of a massive structural power shift. This was not a cautious heir seeking permission from his father's court. It was a future king executing a preemptive strike to safeguard the integrity of the crown he would one day wear. William's underlying motive had been quietly taking shape for years, rooted in a cold, analytical vision of a streamlined monarchy. He had watched the institution suffer devastating, self-inflicted wounds across previous decades, almost all stemming from peripheral, non-working relatives attempting to capitalize on their proximity to royalty. In his eyes, the modern public would no longer tolerate blurred lines, unearned privilege, or private figures trading off the royal brand. To protect the core working unit, the boundaries around the working royal core had to become absolute, impenetrable, and mercilessly enforced. Yet, implementing such a policy while King Charles remained on the throne created an explosive dynamic inside the palace corridors. For King Charles, the situation was an agonizing personal conflict. Charles had spent years working to integrate Camilla's children and grandchildren into his life, deriving genuine warmth and comfort from their presence. To see William systematically severing those ties under the cold banner of constitutional protocol felt like an indirect challenge to his authority as sovereign. Behind closed doors, fierce arguments erupted among competing advisory teams. Those aligned with the king urged maximum caution, desperately pleading for a softer approach to protect delicate family relationships. They argued that isolating Camilla's family would inflict deep, irreversible emotional wounds, casting an avoidable shadow over the king's reign. They warned that a bitter, fractured household would inevitably leak into the press, exposing internal hostility to a public that was already skeptical of royal dynamics. William remained entirely unmoved by these emotional pleas. His focus was fixed entirely on long-term institutional survival. He argued that allowing temporary comfort to override permanent constitutional security was a fatal mistake. If non-titled step-relatives were allowed to enjoy the optics of royal inclusion without carrying any official duty, responsibility, or public accountability, the integrity of the entire crown would be permanently compromised. The emotional toll inside the private quarters was profound. For Queen Camilla, watching her young grandson transformed into a focal point of palace security reviews and constitutional debates was a bitter pill to swallow. Reports whispered through court circles that Camilla felt deeply wounded by what she viewed as an overly harsh, clinical maneuver aimed directly at her loved ones. The subtle privileges her family had enjoyed, from relaxed access to private estates to informal transportation arrangements, were erased overnight. Her family was being pushed outside the protective perimeter of the crown, forced back into the cold reality of strictly private life. What made the maneuver so devastating was how William managed it. Rather than presenting the move internally as a punitive measure against a specific teenager, he framed it as a broader, non-negotiable institutional reform. By establishing a rigid, modern framework for all non-working family members, he removed any grounds for personal negotiation. It was a masterclass in institutional politics, effectively neutralizing opposition by hiding behind the unyielding logic of royal duty. If you are watching this unfold right now and still haven't subscribed to this channel, you are actively choosing to stay blind to how power actually operates behind those high stone walls. While millions of casual viewers blindly consume polished press releases, we dig beneath the surface to bring you the cold, calculated realities shaping the future of the monarchy. If you truly care about understanding the truth, show your commitment right now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video. Walking away now without subscribing means you are content being left in the dark when the next critical power struggle erupts. Do not let yourself be fooled by palace spin. The internal power struggle reached a boiling point during a series of intense, secret briefings between high-ranking household representatives. Advisors tasked with managing public perception warned that enforcing these strict boundaries risked creating a visible rift between the Prince of Wales and the Queen. They pushed for a compromise, suggesting that Camilla's family could retain restricted access for specific private events away from the public gaze. William rejected the compromise without hesitation. He recognized that partial boundaries are useless because they eventually dissolve under social pressure. His stance sent a clear, unmistakable message throughout the entire royal ecosystem. The future king was actively taking control of the institutional boundary lines, signaling to advisors, staff, and family members alike that the rules governing the monarchy had fundamentally changed. Yet, despite the intense internal resistance and the heavy emotional cost within the family, William never wavered, because he knew something his critics did not. The major plot twist in this entire ordeal was that his unyielding move was never framed internally as a personal attack or an isolated act of hostility. It was designed from the very beginning as the foundation for an entirely new model of royal governance, a permanent wall built between the working crown and private family relations. As the dust settled on the heated internal debates and the new guidelines were quietly set in stone, advisors braced themselves for a prolonged, bitter standoff between the competing sides of the family. Then, Princess Anne reportedly entered the discussion in a way almost no one outside palace circles noticed. The sudden, sharp drop of a heavy leather-bound ledger onto the polished conference table cut through the heated whispers of senior palace courtiers, instantly silencing the room. Princess Anne did not offer a soothing word of comfort, nor did she engage in the emotional debate tearing through the household. She simply sat back, placed her hands squarely on the table, and uttered a single sharp sentence that settled the matter entirely. "Protocol is non-negotiable." With those few unyielding words, the Princess Royal effectively shut down weeks of internal lobbying from factions begging for leniency toward Queen Camilla's family. There was no theatrical performance, no grand display of emotion, and certainly no attempt to soften the blow for those who felt targeted. For decades, Anne had served as the quiet, immovable spine of the royal family, a living embodiment of relentless work ethic and zero-nonsense discipline. When she spoke, the entire palace apparatus listened, because everyone inside those walls understood that her loyalty belonged entirely to the crown, never to personal feelings or domestic convenience. Her reputation within the family had been forged over decades of relentless service, carrying out hundreds of engagements every year without a single complaint or demand for personal recognition. She had consistently refused royal titles for her own children, Peter and Zara, recognizing long before anyone else the immense danger of creating a dangerous class of semi-royal individuals walking between public privilege and private ambition. That historical choice gave her absolute authority in this current crisis. When advisors attempted to frame the tightening restrictions as an unfair strike against Camilla's grandson, Anne's silent, unyielding presence exposed that argument as pure weakness. Behind closed doors, rumors circulated that Anne had quietly aligned herself with William's uncompromising direction long before the formal security reviews were ever printed. She recognized the exact same institutional threat that William saw. To Anne, allowing non-working relatives, even those connected to the Queen, to drift in and out of official royal orbits was a recipe for structural decay. The survival of the monarchy relied on total clarity, rigid boundaries, and absolute self-sacrifice. Allowing informal access was not an act of family kindness. It was a dangerous breach of constitutional security that invited commercial exploitation and media circus. Yet, Anne chose to operate through calculated silence rather than loud public intervention. In the complex, highly coded culture of the British royal court, silence is rarely neutral. Silence is a weapon. By refusing to speak out against William's strict protocol review, and by quietly indicating her approval to senior officials in private conversations, Anne sent a powerful signal that vibrated through every corridor of the palace. Her silent endorsement effectively stripped away any lingering hope that King Charles or Queen Camilla could reverse the decision without causing a massive, destructive fracture at the very top of the family. The realization that William was not acting alone sent a chill through the household advisory teams. Courtiers who had secretly hoped to manipulate the generational divide between the King and the Prince of Wales suddenly found themselves standing against an impenetrable alliance. William had the raw, future authority of the heir apparent, but Anne possessed something equally formidable: the absolute, unquestioned respect of the entire institutional establishment. Together, their shared philosophy created an immovable wall that completely reshaped the internal dynamic of the royal household. Pause for a second and look closely at what is happening here. If you are watching this deep dive and still refuse to hit that subscribe button, you are actively choosing to consume superficial noise while ignoring the real mechanics of power. We bring you deep, chilling truths that expose how decisions are truly made behind closed doors, while others leave you with empty speculation. If you value real insight, prove it right now by subscribing, ringing the notification bell, and leaving your raw thoughts in the comments. Walking away right now without subscribing means you are completely fine being misled by surface-level stories. Don't let yourself be blinded when the next major reveal strikes. The emotional peak of this internal conflict hit when palace staff realized that this decision was never about personal malice or family grudges. It was the execution of a cold, shared institutional philosophy. For Queen Camilla, seeing Anne's quiet backing of William's tough approach was likely the most painful revelation of all. It meant there was no court of appeal within the family, no sympathetic senior figure who would step in to defend her grandson's informal access. The decision was absolute, backed by the two most disciplined figures in the modern monarchy. The second major plot twist of this unfolding drama lies in the subtle timing of Anne's involvement. Unverified insider claims suggest that Anne's private approval was not a reaction to William's sudden review, but rather the very spark that encouraged him to act in the first place. Long before the wider family became aware of the shifting rules, Anne had already quietly given William her blessing to clear away the informal privileges, ensuring that when the future king made his move, he stood on unbreakable ground. The court was left reeling as the true scope of this internal alignment became impossible to deny. Every informal arrangement had been dismantled, every loophole closed, and the line between public duty and private family had been permanently redrawn. But there was one final internal detail that completely reframed the story. The confidential briefing document was slammed onto the center of the table, its final red-inked annex gleaming under the harsh chandeliers of the private council room. The senior official delivering the file did not offer an introduction, nor did he allow time for polite debate. Inside that sealed annex lay the complete, unvarnished blueprint for the future of the British Crown, a document that proved every restriction, every revoked pass, and every cold boundary set against Queen Camilla's family was never an isolated incident. It was the first physical phase of an impending, total transformation of the monarchy itself. When the sequence of secret meetings is reconstructed, the timeline paints a chilling picture of calculated foresight. Prince William had not simply reacted to a minor media leak regarding Camilla's grandson. He had systematically used the situation as the legal and constitutional testing ground for his own future reign. By forcing the issue while King Charles remained on the throne, William successfully established a rigid precedent that cannot be reversed. Every protocol tightened today becomes the permanent law of the land tomorrow, ensuring that when the crown eventually passes to him, the institutional perimeter will already be completely sealed against external influence, private commercial ambition, and non-working family members. The long-term implications for the royal household are vast and permanent. Queen Camilla, who had worked tirelessly for decades to build a stable, blended family environment within the royal residences, now faces an unyielding reality. Her institutional influence over structural boundaries has been effectively reduced to zero. Her children and grandchildren, once welcomed into the warm margins of royal life with informal privileges, have been firmly, permanently repositioned on the outside. They remain loved relatives in private, but total strangers to the official apparatus of the crown. This was not an accidental oversight, it was a deliberate, quiet stripping away of informal power before the next major reign even begins. Insiders who monitored these private confrontations argue that William's relentless push was fundamentally about preparing the institution for a brutal, unpredictable future. Modern publics demand absolute transparency and zero tolerance for unearned privilege. By drawing an iron curtain between working royals and extended family, William is removing the key structural vulnerabilities that have tormented the monarchy for half a century. In this high-stakes game of institutional survival, personal feelings, domestic comfort, and family ties are simply collateral damage. The symbolic weight of Princess Anne's backing throughout this ordeal cannot be overstated. Her quiet, unyielding alignment with William signaled to the entire palace ecosystem that the old guard of dedicated, disciplined duty fully approves of the heir's uncompromising vision. It proved that William's actions were not the impulsive moves of an impatient prince, but the cold execution of a legacy strategy passed down from the most respected, experienced figures within the royal family. Together, they have quietly redrawn the map of the British monarchy, sending an unmistakable warning to anyone who believes family ties grant access to the power of the throne. The ultimate revelation of this entire drama reframes every single event that came before it. The move was never truly about one specific grandson, a single press controversy, or private family jealousy. It was allegedly a masterclass in preemptive power, a strategic, calculated effort by Prince William to define the lean, disciplined, and fortress-like monarchy he intends to inherit and rule. Now pause and look at yourself honestly right now. If you have watched this entire story unfold to this exact moment and you still refuse to hit that subscribe button, you are deliberately choosing to stay blind while history is being written in real time. We dedicate countless hours to cutting through palace propaganda and bringing you the dark, raw truths that mainstream outlets are terrified to touch. If you genuinely care about the real truth behind the crown, prove it right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, drop your honest opinion in the comments, and share this video immediately. Turning away now without subscribing means you are completely fine being left behind while everyone else uncovers the real story. Do not allow yourself to be kept in the dark. This power struggle over protocol and family boundaries is only the beginning of a much larger, darker narrative unfolding behind closed doors. Just as the dust was settling on William's protocol review, an encrypted dispatch from inside Windsor Castle revealed a leaked draft of an unreleased royal decree, a document containing a shocking, secret clause regarding the immediate reallocation of royal property and titles. In our very next video, we expose the secret document that has sent shockwaves through the entire royal family, including the exact names slated to lose their royal residence next. You cannot afford to miss a single second of what comes next, so make sure you are subscribed and ready for the explosive truth.